We are live.
Good evening and welcome to the Town of East Hampton Planning Board. This is our meeting of April 28th, 2021. We have a full agenda tonight, including sub-waiver review, 2 site plan reviews, and an artist studio review, as well as matters in our regular meeting. And after we conclude our meeting, the public portion of our meeting, we will be going into executive session. That will be at the end of tonight's meeting after we have left LTV. But we'll describe what we're doing at that point, and then we get into it. And so I see Randy is on and Kathy is just coming on. Hello, Randy. Welcome. Also like to, first of all, let me thank the folks over at LTV for getting us up and running as always, and also to the planning board staff of Jody and Nora, and to the planning department staff. And we welcome to our group Will Highland. Welcome, Will.
Hi, everybody.
Hello. He's going to be on the planning. Yeah, it's not going to be. He is on the planning department staff. He's our new planner. So welcome. The first matter that we have on, Kathy, are you on? I see your name. Are you there yet? I don't see her. And I don't hear Kathy. Is Eric?
Sorry, I'm late.
She's
Looks
joining.
like it's muted.
Kathy may be having some technical difficulties. And we need to hold up because Kathy is the committee on Donald Robertson. But while we're waiting, do we have the representative for Donald Robertson?
I'm going to let them in right now, Chair.
Please do. Thank you very much.
Richard, Andy Hammer, and Tara.
Okay, very good. Very good. Welcome. Richard, Tara, welcome. And there's Kathy. Okay, good. All right.
Sorry, I didn't get start the video message.
Okay, well, here we are.
I've been here.
Good, good. Okay. All right, with that, Marco, go right ahead. Take us away.
Okay. I would like to share screen, if that's okay. It's currently disabled at the moment.
Marco, this is Mike from LTV. I don't see any reason why you can't share screen from my perspective.
Oh, that's weird. I get the prompt that says host disabled participant screen sharing. That might make things a little bit difficult.
I'll see what I can figure out in the meantime. I don't know about that, but I'll look into it.
Okay. I guess for the time being, since the memo itself does have an aerial attached to the back of it, it does have the plans associated with it. So the board can take a look at those if they need to. But just moving forward, so this is a request for a modification of a previously approved sub-waiver that has been made to remove the approved building envelopes of, sorry, not envelopes, but envelope of 10 3 Mile Harbor Hog Creek Highway, identified as Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-119-4-8.2, Lot 3 of the Donald Robertson sub-waiver. So the parcel is zoned A, residence, partially cleared of natural vegetation, and contains a single-family residence with associated accessory structures. The remaining 3 lots in the sub-waiver are also improved with residential uses. It is noted that no formal survey of the property has been submitted to the file for the application. So the Donald Robertson sub-waiver was approved in 1987 to create 4 residential lots. The applicant has stated that it is their belief that the planning board at the time did not intend to impose building envelopes on lot 3, and so should be removed.
Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt, Marco.
Yep.
Can you try that? Can you see if you can share screen now? Do you have an option?
Awesome. Yeah, it works.
Thanks. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. Thank you. So at the moment, I just it's going to load up in a second, but this is just the aerial for the time being. So this is 10 3 Mile Harbor Hog Creek Highway. This is close to 3 Mile Harbor. That would be to the west. But the 4 lots in question are these 4 here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Not in question, but the 4 that were part of the sub-waiver were these 4 here. The one that's highlighted is the lot 3, which is the one that is before us today. I'm just going to head towards the... This is the map that was approved in 1987 that depicts these 4 lots. I'm just going to zoom in, and you can see where the building envelopes are. There'll be lot 3 here. So you can see the dotted lines represent the building envelopes that were approved with this map. Back to where I was before, the applicant has stated that it is their belief that the planning board at the time did not intend to impose building envelopes on lot 3 and so should be removed. It appears that the planning board did intend to impose building envelopes as evidenced by the file's record. Lot 3 is to have a 40-foot setback to the west and a 20-foot setback on the remaining sides. The planning board approved map illustrates building envelopes for each residential lot. The setbacks related to lot 3 are also discussed in the planning department's initial evaluation of the sub-waiver with an attached sketch and detailed in the building card from the building department's records. The building permits for the structures in Lot 3 were sought in 2003, and a CO was granted in 2005. It appears that the building and deck were constructed with setbacks that are not in keeping with the setbacks detailed in the building envelopes that were approved in the 1987 sub-waiver. Just going to show you that survey. This one's a little bit hazy. This one was the last survey that was used for the CO, but for the purposes of just being better on the screen, this one is basically the same survey, but the only difference is that there's a proposed pool on here. But in regards to the general area and the structures, it's the same. However, a CO was granted, and as a result, the property is allowed to remain within the existing setbacks. I do want to add the caveat that those COs or building permits that might be issued in error could be rescinded. But moving forward, while it does have a CO at the moment, and that was granted along with the building permits. So while building envelopes on lot 1 and 2 were designed to exclude steep slopes, the subject parcel does not contain steep slopes. The building envelope appears to represent the yard setback requirements at the time of the subdivision, with a 40-foot setback to the side of the lot facing 3 Mile Harbor, Hog Creek Road. I'm going to say, I guess, highway, mistake, East Hampton. The subject parcel is provided with 20-foot of legal frontage on this public road by a common driveway easement and is considered to be a flag lot, the definition of which is listed in the memo. In 1996, the town code was amended to provide that all the sides of the flag lot are considered side yards, and therefore front and rear yard setbacks don't apply. And under current zoning, 20-foot side yard setbacks for principal structures would apply to all of the sides of the subject lot. The setbacks for accessory buildings or structures are 15 feet, but double to 30 feet for swimming pools, pool decks, slab patios, and pool equipment. It appears that the building envelope was overlooked when the building permits were issued. The existing setbacks to these structures appear to meet the setback for current zoning. The applicant has provided a copy of the survey in which the building department had issued a CO for in 2005, and it appears that the main house and deck meet current zoning. It is noted that there is an additional survey as part of an active building permit permitting the construction of a pool, which is this one on the screen at the moment. Aerials have indicated that the pool has been built in a different orientation than what was on their survey submitted with the latest permit. If we go to the aerial, well, as you can see in this survey, the proposed pool is in this orientation. If you go to the aerial, you can clearly see that it was constructed in a different orientation. So the applicant should submit a survey that demonstrates that the setbacks to the property line and easement on the property are properly met. So condition F of the 1987 subwaiver approval requires that the clearing on the 4 parcels be confined to the building envelope of each lot, except where needed for purposes of improving the common driveway provided herein. Covenants and restrictions were filed that include this requirement. The building envelope reflected the yard setback requirements at the time. Confining clearing to the building envelope also ensured a wooded buffer around the perimeter of the lot, buffering neighboring lots. It is noted that if a scenic easement was filed on the lot, that it may cover portions of the northerly edge of the building envelope. The applicant is requesting that the building envelope be removed, and if the board agrees, condition F would also need to be modified. As you can see, there is a scenic easement on the property, but that was not there at the time when the subdivision was done. So this was done after the subwaiver. Condition F of the subwaiver also states that no more than 36% of the individual lot areas of the 4 parcels shall be cleared and or planted with fertilized vegetation. The planning department estimates that the 36% clearing permitted is approximately 15,000 square feet. At the time the subdivision was approved, the town code did not include any clearing restrictions that applied to this lot, and it appears to have utilized a clearing limitation recommended by Suffolk County for lots in the Pine Barrens. The current recommendation for clearing limits in the Pine Barrens for a lot of approximately 1 acre is 57%. It is noted that the lot appears to meet the clearing limits under the town's current zoning for residential lots of that size, not within a particular overlay district. The maximum clearing permitted is 10,000 square feet plus lot area times 25%, excluding common driveway easements from lot area. It appears that the lot is allowed roughly 20,000 square feet. If the planning board does not modify condition F of the subwaiver approval, the applicant will need to revegetate portions of the site. Council should advise the board what would be required to modify the CNRs. It appears that more than 36% of the lot has been cleared, and that the clearing is outside of the building envelope. The applicant should provide a survey of the existing clearing on the property that includes the clearing line and clearing calculations. The survey should indicate the lot area, excluding the area of the access easement in accordance with the town code, and base the clearing calculations on the same. The survey should also depict a scenic easement over the northerly portion of the property that was depicted on a plan submitted to the building department, and the square footage of the easement. The area of the scenic easement should be included in the total lot area. A copy of the filed scenic easement should also be submitted to the file. Council should advise the board as to what would be required to modify this covenants and restrictions. The planning board should discuss the appropriate legal methods in which to ensure the property's record is properly recorded. The planning department recommends that the proposed removal of the building envelope approved in the 1987 subwaiver should be refiled with the Suffolk County Clerk's Office to ensure that the future individuals can accurately follow the subwaiver's history and find an up-to-date map of the subwaiver. Comments from the Chief Fire Marshal Dave Brown, dated March 3rd, 2021, has stated that the submitted information is sufficient of not relevant to necessitate further review for fire protection purposes. In conclusion, the proposed application is to remove the building envelopes that were originally approved by the initial subwaiver in 1987. Although the property was not built in accordance to the building envelope, it was granted a building permit in CO and appears to meet current zoning. The applicant should provide formal surveys to ensure that the appropriate setbacks are met. The planning board should discuss the property's clearing and the methods in which the property's history is properly filed.
Thank you very much, Marco, for your usual fellow of the board. We appreciate it. And Mr. Hammer.
Yes.
Or is yours to respond?
Yes. Good evening, Chairman. Richard A. Hammer, I'm here. I believe Tara Burke is called in. She's not in the office right now because she's on taking care of her kids right now, but did want to be here and had processed the application.
I thought I saw her on the Zoom.
Is she on Zoom?
Yeah.
I think she's
I'm
not
here.
saying. Oh, there you go. I stand corrected. I don't have a ton to add. I didn't expect this to be a controversial application in any fashion. I did want to say the reason I concluded that there weren't building envelopes associated with lots 3 and 4 of the subdivision is because if you read the board's original sub-waiver approval dated January 29th of 87, it says construction on lots 1 and 2 shall be confined to the building envelopes as shown on the sketch of the planning department as described herein. You know, they had never discussed building envelopes on lot 3 and 4. You know, as former planning board counsel, building envelopes are typically associated with either steep slopes or with protected natural features. Lot 3 and 4 don't exhibit any of those. As a matter of fact, a lot of the history on this lot is about lot 1 and 2 and the placement of a scenic easement over those slopes, which is why I concluded that lot 3 and 4 were not intended to have the building envelope. The other thing that's unique, and I wanted to point out to the board, is a sub-waiver is not a recorded or filed subdivision map. So there is no record whatsoever of the board's original approval or the sub-waiver map unless you go to the town planning department and foil it. So we had a local surveyor, which is David Saskis, who prepared that survey that showed the building envelope staked out for the pool construction. The property had previously been owned by a local guy named Jason Spielberg. I happen to know Jason. He used to play softball down at the Maidstone, local landscaper. There was frankly no way for them to understand that there was a building envelope associated with that filed map because it's not a filed map. The other thing I want to point out is there's no recorded covenants and restrictions that would establish these building envelopes on the property. Typically today, you know, there's 2 ways you would impose them under the board. That's why all sub-waiver maps are required to be imposed. One is to put that on a subdivision map that is filed in the county clerk with a notation that buildings and structures will be confined within the building envelopes, et cetera. And the second way is to file individual covenants and restrictions so that a purchaser of value of this lot, which in fact Mr. McGovern is a purchaser of value, would be put on notice that these restrictions affect the property. There's none of that in our record of title. So, you know, the fact that he applied for and received a certificate of occupancy also points to the fact that the building department didn't know about these restrictions until I believe it was when the town files were finally rescanned. You see the notation on the building history, but I don't believe it appeared there before, and certainly wasn't something that David Saskis could have discovered without exhaustive review, because they do order titles. That's pretty much the only thing I have to add on the property. I do think that it's notable that the clearing restrictions, which are designed to be, are pegged to be consistent with Suffolk County Pine Barrens. This has also happened in Suffolk County, in Southampton town, where they actually amended their code because they adopted.
Sam, could I make 2 clarifications?
Yeah, please, Joey.
One is that sub-waiver maps are required to be filed wherever there are covenants and restriction easements. So I'm not sure, that may not have been the policy in 87, but it's been the policy for a very long time. So we are requiring them to be filed at this time anyway.
Yes, I would agree with that, Joanne, but this sub-waiver map was not filed.
The other comment is the covenant and restriction number 4 says no more than 36% of the individual lot areas of the 4 parcels shall be cleared and are planted with fertilized vegetation Clearing may take place on the 4 parcels only within the building envelope of each lot as set forth on the approved minor subdivision map. So I think that the covenants and restrictions do reflect building envelopes
I
on this lot.
also had a question. I thought I heard you say that the building envelope on lots numbers 1 and 2 had a relationship to the scenic easement. Did I hear you correctly on that?
There's a steep slope and a scenic easement that was covering the steep slope. That's why they're irregularly shaped. If you look at, I don't know, I think Marco had a copy of the approved, see the scenic easement on lot 1 and 2?
Right.
That was placed over the steeper slopes on the property.
But the building envelope had a relationship to that scenic easement. Is that?
That is correct, yes.
Because the lot 3 has a scenic easement as well, doesn't it? The lot
Yes,
that
it
we're
does.
talking about? How does that relate to the building envelope then?
The building envelope would be encapsulated, would actually include part of the scenic easement, looking at this drawing.
Okay, all right. Okay, I just wanted, because, you know, there's scenic easement on all the properties, well, 3 anyway. All right, did you have anything else that you or Ms. Burke wanted to add on this?
Yeah, Sam, if I could just add to what you were just talking about. This is Tara Burke, also here to represent John McGovern. The scenic easement on lot 3 was not established at the time of the subdivision. Only the scenic easements on 1 and 2 were required at the time of subdivision.
You know, before I even say another word, I should just say that I represented, if it's the same John McGovern, and we should probably clarify, I represented Mr. McGovern a number of years ago in one of his businesses, but I haven't represented him in a number of years, so I don't think there's any conflict. And I certainly didn't represent him with respect to this, assuming it's the same John McGovern. So,
Sam, you're kind of fading in.
I said,
and out.
assuming it's the same John McGovern. I didn't. I represented one of his businesses a number of years ago. So, but I should put that on the record. But again, I have nothing to do with this application. And at the present time, and for at least a couple of years, I haven't represented him. I should have said that a while back. I apologize for not doing that. So please continue. Sorry, Tara. Sorry to interrupt you with that.
No, that's okay. And then just adding to the history, you know, we reviewed the subdivision file from the day the application was submitted and the original planning department evaluation, when that came in, all the way up until the time of approval. And the subdivision file speaks at length about the steep slopes on lots 1 and 2 and the need for building envelopes and the need for scenic easements. And the only place the building envelopes are mentioned at all on lots 3 and 4 are in the initial planning department evaluation, where the planner provides a sketch of the building envelopes and says in his memo that the building envelopes provide proper setbacks from lot lines and access easements and limit development of steep slopes. So there are no steep slopes on lots 3 and 4. So the building envelopes on lots 3 and 4 were drawn for proper lot line setbacks at the time and from the access easement. And then even when you read through the SECRA, right, when you read through the environmental assessment form, there's still no mention of the building envelopes on lots 3 and 4. So when we said we didn't believe the planning board intended to put those building envelopes on lot 3 and 4, just to clarify from Marco's memo, what we were trying to say is that all of the discussion was on the reason for putting them on lots 1 and 2. And the only thing we could deduce as to why they showed up on lots 3 and 4 was because they reflected zoning at the time. And as Marco points out, the code has changed since then to establish flag lots where there are no front yard setbacks, which is really the setback that is the issue, right? The one that where the 40 feet was established because that was a front yard at the time. So that's really all I have to add.
There's also covenants and restrictions that refer to the building envelopes as drawn.
Well, I would just, if it says it refers to a building restriction or a building envelope. Typically, when you see building envelopes, They're placed with meets and bounds and reference a filed subdivision map. There is no filed subdivision map that you can refer to. So a building envelope could easily be, it was designed to accommodate zoning, but there's no internal reference that would bring you to a document that you can discover as somebody buying it. Basically, the only subdivision map you would have to foil from the planning department at that point. You know, it's just, it wasn't a very effective means of establishing a building envelope that hasn't been followed since, probably for that exact reason.
All right, if you have nothing else, then I'd like to turn it over to Kathy.
Sure.
Okay, Kathy? There? Kathy? Kathy on? Kathy?
Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to keep the helicopter noise from overrunning the Zoom here. Very loud over this way right about now. Well, I went up and took a look at this property yesterday, and I think this whole thing is a big snarl here. I thank Marco for unraveling it as much as he has done. And I understand Andy and Tara's representation of their client, Mr. McGovern. But everything that I've read and what I've been looking at leads me to believe that there was an intention to limit the clearing on all of these lots, and that a building envelope, whether it was properly drawn and properly filed or not, it's part of this document here, which I don't know what it is. It's an amendment to the subdivision, Part E, I think it's number 5, Part E, where it says project limiting fence hay bale shall be installed prior to clearing or building on lots 1 and 2. The limiting fence and hay bales shall be placed down slope. Oh, sorry, I'm reading the wrong one. Clearing and fertilized vegetation shall be limited to 36% of individual lot areas for lot 1, 2, 3, and 4. Clearing shall be limited to the building envelopes of each respective lot, except where needed for common driveway improvements and turning areas as detailed on the subdivision map. Dated May 20, 1987, and the driveway plan dated April 24, 1987. So to my mind, as a planning board member who is, help our responsibility to foresee, to try to take preventative measures to foresee problems as they might arise down the road in the interest of good planning. I have to respect the consideration of that board to limiting the clearing. Now, I recognize that we permit more now, but this has got to be in the 3 Mile Harbor watershed. It's right across the street from it. And to my mind, less clearing is better in any circumstance like that. And this is there are steep slopes in there. The road goes up and up. It's quite an unusual landmass for that part of, Springs, or 3 Mile Harbor. So I recognize that there were some judgments made in error, that the CO was granted in error. But I would recommend a modification of the building lot, not an elimination of it. I'm not sure exactly how to draw that, but I think eliminating the building lot just permits 100% clearing on this property. And I don't think that that's a good, in the interest of good planning. So I would ask that we take a look at this building envelope and try to redraw it. And among the other recommendations that Marco has made, including getting all this sort of legitimately written up in a way that clarifies the history. So going forward, future owners of this land will know what their needs are. But that would be my recommendation, a modification rather than eliminating it.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. Does anybody else have any opinion with respect to, as Kathy suggests, the modification rather than the limitation, and any other
So would
ideas?
I just have a question, Kathleen. Would
Oh.
that require then some revegetation along with it?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think so. I mean, you know, when I referenced the other points that Marco made in his memo, it includes, you know, we don't know what the clearing is on there. We need the clearing calculations. It seems to me it would indicate a revegetation plan would be necessary. But at the very least, you have to start with the modified building envelope so that
They know.
those calculations can be made from a point certain. So
Okay, I was just curious. I wasn't
yeah,
clear.
yeah, I'm glad you asked me that because it needed further clarification, but that is what I meant when I just,
Okay.
you know, I summarized all the other points that Marco had made.
Yeah, the planning department's suggested issues, questions at the end of Marco's memo seem to direct us, send us in that direction.
I'd like to ask a question.
Oh, please, Lou, go ahead.
It seems to me, and maybe I'm wrong, so correct me if my reasoning is off base here. But it seems to me the building envelope, according to the filing requirements and all of that all those other requirements, it seems to me that it was not supposed to be filed. It needed not to be filed. And the important thing in my eyes is whether or not the clearing is adequate and whether or not the setbacks are being met. So whether you have a building envelope or you don't, as long as the setbacks are in compliance, and the clearing, and Marco's memo says, it is noted that the lot appears to meet the clearing limits under the town's current zoning. So if it meets the clearing limits and the setbacks are in compliance, why is there any discussion about insisting on putting a building envelope?
Because we don't know what the clearing limits are actually. No calculations were provided. He's guesstimating that. That's not his
So
job.
if the calculations are to be provided and they meet the town code, would you be happy with that? That the clearing is adequate and the setbacks are in compliance?
For that that part of this, yes, but it's to my mind, it should still have a building envelope. The building envelope contains the clearing and development of a lot to that area. Without a building envelope, the whole lot, you know, is subject to development of some kind. So it's unusual to not have a building envelope. You know, that's I think that.
And why is the client against having a building envelope, Richard?
Oh, I think because of this whole mess. I mean, I think there's just been a lot of mess. It's not really their fault, but I can't, you know, let them answer.
We're not opposed to having it. Every property has a building envelope. The building envelope is decided by zoning. When this subdivision map was approved, the intention was, or what was shown on that map, is the building envelope that's allowable by zoning at the time. We didn't have front yard setbacks. There weren't flag lots. So that building envelope merely reflected zoning at the time. Since that time, the town code has adopted flag lots. We no longer have a front yard setback. So all we're saying is our building envelope, instead of a 40-foot setback from that property line, would be compliant with current zoning restrictions. That was kind of the intention back then, but we do have there have been improvements built that violate the building envelope on this map, but meet current zoning. Another point is with respect to the clearing, I believe this does comply with clearing because this didn't come to me until they had applied for a CO, submitted everything to get the building department to sign off on it, when it was picked up that, oh, wait a second, based on the new rescan, we see there's a building envelope that's at play here, and your pool and pool patio violate that building envelope. So our proposed building envelope is in conformance with current zoning. We're not opposed to having, but everybody has a building envelope. Truthfully, in terms of the clearing, we never asked for a waiver of the clearing restrictions on this property. they do comply with current zoning. If the board were to say, well, we're not going to modify the clearing, I think we can comply with 36% clearing or whatever the restriction is outside of the common driveway. That's inherent in the property, and it's identifiable and understandable when you read the existing covenant, but the building envelope is what was not readily identifiable and understandable.
I think that seems very workable to me. If we can just, that's really all I was asking for or suggesting is to modify the building envelope to include what you're discussing, which I think is still within, comports with current code. So, but eliminating the building envelope was not something I was interested in doing.
Okay.
Can I?
Randy, has something else?
Yeah, well, I think it would be really helpful to the board if we had a survey.
That's the questions.
Yeah. That shows not only all of the things Marco wanted, but that has the scenic easement on it, that I'm not clear why the owner granted a scenic easement after the approval. It's not clear what the thinking was there, but
I agree with you. I would like the question doesn't ask about the scenic easement, although there's a further question involving the scenic easement. But I agree it would be useful for that to be on the survey.
We know that it's record. So I just quickly, what would help me anyway is if we had an updated survey that shows the scenic easement, the clearing line, the clearing calculation, the building envelope that was approved in the sub waiver, the topo actually, because just to verify, I'm not talking about 2 foot, but 2 foot or 5 foot contours just so we can see what the slopes are. And then finally, the other thing is that the sub waiver map seems to have an access and a fire turnaround that was never built. It doesn't look like it was built on the aerial. So
I'm pretty sure that's right, because that road isn't even kind of well maintained really, but I noticed that too.
I did want to ask, I think I can answer one of Randy's questions. The scenic easement that you see on that map, I believe it was imposed in 2003 based on the building record. I think it was imposed by the owner of one of the adjacent properties before they conveyed it to these lots. It basically prohibits structures so that they would have a clearer view out of their rear window. It's not a town imposed scenic easement. I will foil and get copies of it, but it was, we were in here asking about a building envelope, not about a scenic easement. I think that might be a private covenant restriction that benefits one of the adjacent properties that said, all right, I'll sell you the property, but I don't want to look out at your accessory garage or whatever it is. So I'm going to restrict that further. I will get copies of that, but it's not a town-owned scenic easement, I don't believe.
Oh, okay.
Well,
that's interesting. Yeah.
Well, one way or the other, though, if there's a scenic easement, it affects the neighboring property. So I think it's important for it to be specified. All right, if nobody else has anything, let's move on to the questions.
I do, Sam.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ian. Don't want to jump without. Go right ahead, please.
That's okay. Well, look, I think that what we're being asked here is basically whether there's a change of circumstance. I know generally we don't want to modify a previous board's determination, but if we were looking at this lot, it sounds like from Marco's memo, we would not have a building envelope. And I find that there is a change of circumstance by the fact that this property has changed hands. It's been issued a building permit, CO, and nobody seems to have known that the envelope was there. And I don't see why the envelope would be put there if we did it today. So I would be fine with waiving it. I think to Andy's point, I think most lots don't have their own building envelope necessarily outside of what is required by zoning. And I think the second issue is the clearing. And I feel the same about that. I think that based on Marco's guidance, the 36% was based on the current recommendation at the time, which is now 57%. So I certainly don't think they should, be outside of that, but I would be in favor of changing it from 36% to 57. since I think that, there has been a change of circumstance and the logic would lead us to that new number. So.
Very good. All right, before I go on to the questions, does anyone else have anything? If not, I'm going to modify the first question as I go. If I missed something, Randy, tell me. Should the applicant submit a survey depicting the proposal and demonstrate that the appropriate setbacks are met, and also showing the scenic easement? And what was the other thing that you had, Randy?
Well, the clearing line, I think Marco asked for that. The clearing line, the clearing calculation, I think we should see the existing building envelope that was in the old map. We can, before we decide whether or not we want to waive it, let's see where it is on the survey.
Okay, well, I agree with that. Does anyone disagree with that?
I disagree only because I don't want to waste anybody's time or money. And I think that since I'm willing to waive it, I don't need to see it before waiving it. I got an idea where the lines are.
Anyone else?
I don't think it's necessary, Sam.
No?
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's bad.
I'm going with the tide on this one as well. As far as the, I do want the scenic easement. I do think the clearing is important, but I don't think we need to see what do you call it? A line that we're all agreeing doesn't need to be there. Or at least that we're heading in that direction.
Tim, are you asking for a proposed building envelope?
No, the one, I think what Randy was saying was the former building envelope. Am I on that, Randy?
I know, but that you don't want the old building envelope, but do you want them to put a proposed building envelope on here? A revised building envelope?
Well, it would be zoning, right? It would be the
Yeah, I mean, typically we would show, setback lines, and that should be shown, I think, for sure.
That's the
But I think we should be careful with calling. I know it is essentially a building envelope, but it's not specifically that, and that it wouldn't be tied to that, in perpetuity.
It would be a building envelope that contained clearing. As
define clearing for sure, yeah.
That's the point of it.
Jody, are you getting all that?
Yes.
Well, isn't there an issue with the pool in terms of setbacks as well? We need to see the existing pool the required pool setbacks and where the pool was actually built.
Right, but that would be on the survey.
That'll be on a survey.
Yeah,
It does meet setbacks.
yeah.
It does. Okay.
Yeah, I think the challenge here is that all the development meets current setbacks. It's just not in conformity with the original, sub-waiver.
Right.
The terms of the sub-waiver.
There aren't that many variations.
Yeah.
They'll show up on the survey.
Yeah, but a revised survey would clear the whole mess up, to my mind.
Yes.
And hopefully it'll create new issues. All right,
What-
so the applicant submits a
So I'm
survey
sorry,
depicting-
Sam, just to clarify, so you would like the applicant to have a proposed building envelope, or is that proposed
Well,
a building
no,
envelope or
it's
setbacks?
It goes to
depicted?
setback.
So we're going to show the currently required setbacks
Right.
for everything.
Okay.
Yes.
I think that'll be.
I think
that'll be.
The clearing lines and the scenic easement.
I'm sorry, Ian. What'd you say?
I think the important elements are the scenic easement line, the clearing lines, and the setbacks.
Yeah, that way the applicant knows, what the limits are.
And a clearing calculation course too.
Yes.
Yes, that was, yeah.
I knew there was.
What about this fire turnaround? You Marco, you say that the fire inspector reviewed it because, frequently they want, they want a way to get in, turn around, and get out. And that original sub-waiver map had a access in, a fire turnaround, and none of it's been built. So I named the driveway in. See that turnaround on lot 3?
Yes. This last survey was done in 2005. Obviously, it looks like it's a little bit different now from the aerials. The fire marshal comments don't specify anything regarding that, but sorry.
I could clarify, I doubt that the fire marshal was looking at that aspect of it, so I don't think that that the fact that he had no comments meant that he did not found it acceptable that they didn't have, that was not in the field. He wasn't in the field. He looked at the map. We didn't even really, he looked at the maps that we had, that's all.
Right.
Would you like me to inquire the fire marshal about his opinion on the emergency turnaround, I guess?
And you would have to revise the subdivision map, not have that if that's where you're going, so.
Yeah, I think we have to have his input.
It's gone by the board, hasn't it? I mean, it's not an issue any longer, is it?
No, it's not built, Sam.
No,
Yeah, that was supposed to be a development that occurred and it didn't.
it didn't. So
Correct.
we're not going to do it now, are we?
Well, the fire department, I think Marco's suggestion is a good one. Ask the fire marshal if they're okay with that turnaround not being built. And then, as Joanne says, we have to modify that too, to say you don't have to have an emergency vehicle turnaround, which I'm not going to support, but.
I don't believe the approval actually requires it to be constructed. That might be the short answer. It provides for it, but I don't see anything that says you have to construct it.
Well, that's interesting.
So how
That's
would
why it went by the board. I don't know that it's relevant, not relevant, but I don't know that we can impose it at this point.
If it's, all right, I don't know.
Tell me if I'm wrong.
Well, Sam, it's a typical thing to have a fire emergency vehicle turnaround. And
yeah, I know.
Usually the developer has to do that before they can sell lots. And so.
I think the planning department can look into it if you'd like to see what the, if there was a fire emergency turnaround required for the subdivision approval and see where it goes from there.
Should also check the file to see if the planning board actually signed off on building permits and C of Os.
We didn't, and it's gone.
Got COs, yeah.
And it's gone. All right, should the applicant submit a survey depicting the existing clearing and address condition F of the approved 1987 sub-waiver? And I think that's subsumed by the first one. Should the applicant submit a copy of the view easement on the property? And again, I think that's subsumed by the first inquiry, because if the easement is in the survey, I think we're covered. And the planning board should discuss whether the applicant should refile the sub-waiver map to the Suffolk County Clerk's office. We haven't discussed that.
Are we sure it's not there, Andy?
Oh, it's not there. I know that for a fact because the property descriptions do not refer to a filed map. Frankly, I don't know that I could file a subdivision map in the county clerk's office. I'm only the owner of one lot, or I represent the owner of one lot. So I think that's impossible.
Thomas?
I agree with Andy on that. I mean, I think if the board wants to modify the prior approval and require new CNRs to be filed, or, you know, if that ends up happening, then that's fine. But I don't see how Andy, is representing one of the 4 lots, can file a sub-waiver map that affects all 4.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right. I think that covers everything. So, sorry, not Randy. Mr. Hammer, easier that way. Go ahead and give David Saskis a call and get on with it.
Well, you know, the thing is, most of what you're asking for is already on file with the town. It just happens to be in the building department, you know, so I'll just have to get the records that were filed with the building department and send them over to you guys.
However you're going to do it.
Which I would love if there was a way to connect all the systems, so it would save a lot of paper. Just thought I'd point that out.
One day.
I'm with you on that.
Monday. No tree to save a tree.
Thank you, Andy. Thanks, Mara.
Thank you very much as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye now.
Number 80, Firestone Bluff Crest Cottages. Lou, you're the committee on this. I see Ms. Wiltshire. Are you there, Lori? Okay.
Wait, this is.
I believe Joe Halsey.
Actually, no, this is Joel Halsey. That's right. I'm sorry. Board. Is Joel here?
Joe, you're not gonna let me go first?
Oh, Joel is here. He's with me. He's just standing outside.
Oh.
We're in the same office, same applicant, and he's coming in right now.
All right. Is it still going to say Richard Hammond?
Excuse me.
I can maybe change the name if you want. It's my laptop, so.
I don't want to get confused. All right, why don't you, Mr. Frank, this is usually Brian Frank delivers the report on this, but Brian's elsewhere tonight, so Eric will pinch hit.
Sure.
You're on.
I'm going to summarize Brian's memorandum that you all have. There's only a couple of outstanding issues. I will share screen starting with the aerial photograph. Hopefully you can see that. The first issue was the revegetation and landscaping plan, which consists of a staggered line of eastern red cedars along the northern and southern side yard lot lines, along with a combination of shad and bayberry throughout the eastern portion of the property. The area proposed revegetation correlate with the area of revegetation required as a condition of approval by the ZBA, which is seaward of the landward limit of the coastal erosion hazard area boundary. The proposal to revegetate this area with a combination of Virginia rose and bayberry is acceptable to the planning department. The Virginia rose consists of 2-gallon containers. Container plants planted no greater than 24 inches on center. The bayberry consists of a combination of 5-gallon and 3 to 4 foot height bulb and burlap plants. This spacing is unspecified on the plan, the most recent plan, but appears to average 4 to 5 feet on center, which is consistent with the planning department recommendations. Based on these specifications, the plan is acceptable to the planning department for the purposes of fulfilling the condition of zoning board approval. And it's noted that the final clearing amount is listed as 34,319 square feet on the most recent Woolbridge survey. I'll address that at the end. We have received a submission today that includes a revision of the landscaping plan, but I will save that for the end. The ARB has given approval as of April 8th, so that issue is resolved. Groundwater protection policy, you'll recall that the board wanted to see some measure to prevent spills in the basement of buildings. The applicants have proposed an epoxy coating system whose uses, according to the manufacturer's specifications, include industrial floors, warehouses, and service bay areas. A similar wall paint is proposed from the floor to a wall height of 18 inches. The floor epoxy and wall paint application has been added to the foundation plan details. With that in mind, the planning department has prepared a EAF part 2 and 3 and a negative declaration pursuant to Secret Chapter 128 of the Town Code is recommended. So in conclusion, the applicants do appear to have addressed the outstanding issues. However, we do note that the most recent revegetation plan that the board has had prior to the scheduling of this meeting did not include the spacing of the bayberry in the area to the seaward side of the coastal erosion hazard line. That was requested of the applicants. They did submit that. However, that was submitted today. It has been the board's policy in the past to not accept submissions after the date that the meeting has been scheduled, with good reason. This does not give staff or the board the time to review the plan. In this case, it's a relatively minor change, but we do feel that policy should be continued. On the bright side with that, the applicants have submitted it. As the chairman noted at the beginning, Brian Frank is the planner reviewing this. I do understand that he's looked at it and spoken with the applicants, with Joel Halsey, the agent for the owners, and that it does appear satisfactory. So given that fact, we can have a quick turnaround. We can put this back on for next week's meeting, just to verify that. And as a matter of fact, we don't have a resolution to schedule it for a public hearing tonight anyway. That would have been read next week. So on the bright side, that won't cost time, but technically, you know, I know what it says in the memo, but we recommend that you don't deem this complete tonight because you don't have that revision to the landscaping plan. However, we do feel that you have enough information to make a secret declaration and recommend that you do so after reviewing the EAF that was attached to the planner's memo. But as we say, you know, that is a correction from the memorandum indicating that the application is complete. We would encourage you not to deem it complete, but we can have it on for next week, and you can do so at that time, it appears.
Very good. Thank you, Eric. Thank you for that clarification. Mr. Holt, Joel, there you are. Can I say anything before?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Joel.
So I guess it's kind of a moot point about complaining that it's not going to be deemed complete since the resolution is not done anyway, so you can't do anything. You know, I got a call, I guess it was, or an email late Thursday or late Wednesday saying Brian wanted spacing between the bay to show the spacing between the bayberries on the plan. The plan was to scale, so we revised the revegetation plan just to show that the bayberries meet the, you know, the spacing, 3 to 5 feet of spacing between each other. That was the only revision to that plan. You know, and I had to get it in, so I got it in, I guess, for, you know, yesterday when I received it. So, you know, I mean, again, it's a kind of a moot point since you have no resolution today. I'm praying that next week there will be a resolution. Mm-hmm. And you can deem it complete and deal with the resolution.
Yeah, well, it looks like you're awfully close, and you know, this is kind of no harm, no foul sort of situation. So let me. Did you have anything else, Joe?
No, I mean, you know, just I mean, awfully close. I think we're that's it. I would imagine. I can't think of anything else.
I don't know if there's anything else that's out there, but we don't take. As Eric just described the policy, we don't take things on the day. So let me ask the board, we have a short EAF. Does anyone, I hope that we've all had a chance to look at it. Everything was identified as no or small impact may occur. Does anyone have any debate or dispute or argument, if you will, with any of the suggestions by the planning department that no or small impact may occur on this one? Going once, going twice, going third time. Okay. Lou, this is yours, so you might want to lead off with a resolution, but I won't tell you how to do your job.
No, the only thing that I want to say, I know that, you know, I like to follow rules. I think they're important. I also am aware that certain rules have exceptions. And I think in this case, an exception should have been made because it's not as though the applicant came in at the last minute and surprised us with a modification. We asked him to make a certain change. We knew what that minor change was going to be. They did it, they submitted it. They didn't submit it within the time interval. I think that's really exceeding the follow the rule application. So anyway, it doesn't matter because we don't have a resolution. And it's only going to be delayed a week, but I did just want to make that point. And hopefully we can conclude it next week. I think the applicant too, I just want to mention that they did everything that we've asked for. They've submitted and they've been very cooperative. And as I said before, I think it's a great property. The plan is wonderful. It looks great. So I'm happy.
It's not a reflection on the applicant at all. It's just, you know, it's one of those things where it's a rule that could get out of hand and instead of that. But be that as it may, Blue, Thomas, we need a resolution, don't we, on the EAF? Do we need to make a resolution? Do we need to
we just need to vote to, you know, to make that determination, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Motion, I move for negative declaration.
I'm sorry?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There you go. Okay. I think that covers this, and we will see you for sure next week.
And you'll see me actually in about 15 minutes. hopefully.
Oh, there you are. Okay. Don't go anywhere. All right, the next one is, Bacchus is Vicky Residence Unit number 73. And Eric, this is yours as well. And Lou, this is yours as well. So, and is this Lori?
Hello,
Is this Ms. Wilshire's?
I'm here.
Is it yours? Bacchus is Vicky?
Yeah, that's Lori. Lori is the agent.
I'm here.
All right, gang's
Hi.
on you. All right,
Hi,
Eric.
Lori.
Hi.
All right, go right ahead, Eric.
Okay, sure. Hopefully you can see the screen. This is the aerial photograph of the property on the eastern edge of Napeague. This is an application to construct a new outdoor shower and staircase of roughly 49 square feet and an air conditioning unit enclosure of roughly 32 square feet. The parcel is situated on the south side of Montauk Highway in Napeague. It's owned RS Resort, and it's characterized by flat to rolling dunes, dune land, tidal marsh, and beach soils, and it abuts the Atlantic Ocean, as you can see on that aerial photograph. This is a type 2 action under SECRA. Additionally, it qualifies as a minor site plan, meaning if the board chooses to, you can waive the public hearing requirement. I'm going to switch to the site plan now. So, well, actually, I'll toggle back to the aerial here. Hopefully you can see my cursor. You can see it's sort of a backwards L-shaped construction to these resort units. The unit in question is up at the northern end of the eastern wing of those units. And I will now go to the site plan, which you can see is rotated roughly 90 degrees. North would be to your left here. So you'll see here in green is the area of the proposed staircase, shower, and AC unit enclosure. The site plan does not illustrate the setbacks of the proposed structures to the freshwater wetlands to the north, which you can see here with these circles and this dotted line. That is the wetland boundary that is accurate still. However, it appears that they're roughly 107 feet away. Anything within 150 feet is going to require a natural resources special permit from the ZBA. Additionally, the property contains beach vegetation, which is also a trigger. The applicant should submit an NRSP application to the ZBA as soon as possible. And then additionally, the wetland setbacks should be illustrated on the survey to verify that they're outside of 100 feet, but still within 150 feet. So I will show you the plans, which there's a floor plan. This is an elevation sketch. Essentially what you see here, and I'll try and zoom in a little bit, is along the side of the building, the eastern side, would be a staircase with a railing that would go up to the second story. And then this here would be a below the staircase an outdoor shower with a door though that would close. And then this area here is a excuse me, this is the shower. This is the AC enclosure. So there's an outdoor shower. There hasn't been any information about, and I'll zoom down here and hopefully show you a floor plan that might illustrate it a little bit better. Here we go. So this is the area in question on the upper left-hand side. It's not clear where the water from the shower will go, whether or not a new dry well is proposed or if it's to be tied into the existing wastewater disposal system. This area is entirely sandy soils. You should not really expect any runoff, but the containment of that is an issue that you might want to address with the applicants. Additionally, there's 2 AC units proposed. I shouldn't say the units are proposed. We're not clear whether or not they're existing or proposed. The enclosure is proposed. That area is situated about 16 feet from the eastern property line. The planning board in the past, when there's utilities near a property line, has brought up issues of noise and asked the applicants about it. In this case, there is an enclosure there. And then additionally, technically, as I read the code, there actually is no noise limitation under chapter 185 of the town code for that eastern property line. If I switch back to the aerial, this would be the property line that it was closest to, if you can see the cursor. This to the east is Hither Hills State Park. The town code under chapter 185 actually sets maximum noise limits at property lines abutting commercial properties and residential properties. This is technically neither. It's own PC Parks and Conservation, which doesn't fall into either of those major categories. But there are other units here, and you may want to just discuss that with the applicants. Few of the other issues that we'd like to see, the plan does illustrate the parking spaces on the site, which you can see also if you look at the aerial, are delineated. This application is not triggering an increase in parking simply for the purposes of record keeping and future reference. We would just like to see a parking calculation identifying the number of existing parking spaces, for future applications. That I believe was included in the recent application that did a renovation of a number of the units and the main entrance in this portion of the building. We're not contesting that any additional parking is required, just that we want to have that noted on the plan. Lighting, I erroneously stated in here that they had not provided lighting information. They in fact did. I just missed it. It's on the elevation plan. They gave identification of the fixture. There's one fixture that's proposed basically at the top of the staircase here. That I'm familiar with that fixture. It is a code compliant fixture. So we do find that acceptable. And we do note that the ARB has reviewed this and has already issued an approval for it. So in conclusion, the application is incomplete. However, that's really only in reference to the fact that the survey should be amended to illustrate the setback to the wetland, and any information that the board wants about wastewater control or noise should also be provided. And then the parking calculation should be provided on the site plan. And again, the applicants will need an NRSP most likely, pending the addition of the setbacks. Verifying that, but they should submit that as soon as possible because that process can occur concurrently with the site plan review.
Very good. Ms. Wiltshire, it's yours.
Yes. So we have submitted to the zoning board. The dry well for the shower will be directly under the shower. The AC units are existing, and the wood we're putting up in front of them will act as a sound buffer. Although, as Eric pointed out, the land next door is Parks and Conservation, so there's no one to actually disturb. And all of the units have AC condensers, so you basically have to sound buffer the entire property. I will let you know that this property is being planned for a major, a master plan for a major project coming up. So you'll be seeing a lot of these things on that plan. I can just put a number for the existing parking on the survey. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's all we're really asking.
Okay, and the setback to the wetlands, and I think those are the only changes.
Very well. Thank you very much. Lou.
Yeah, Lori answered a few of the questions that I had and that Eric pointed out in his memo. I was wondering about the AC unit. Obviously, it doesn't matter east of the unit because you have all that parkland. But I was wondering about AC units in other units and in this one, and Lori answered that question. So I don't think that's a problem. And the fact that it is getting enclosed should mitigate the noise, if anything. As far as the shower, I guess it's draining beneath this shower, you said, Lori? Is there a dry well there that?
There'll be a dry well under the shower, yes.
Okay. And you know, that's it. I mean, the big issue here is the setbacks and the NSRP that is in front of the zoning board. But those are the only points that I wanted to make.
Okay. I guess, does anyone else have any other comments or questions or anything they wish to add on this?
A couple of quick things, Sam.
Straightforward question, application, go ahead.
Do we know the depth of groundwater underneath that shower in terms of whether a dry well or what kind of dry well is going to be above the groundwater table?
Roy Delene's looked into this. He's the builder and he doesn't think it's going to be an issue.
Okay, so it looks like we got 8.7 feet of elevation. So probably a 4-foot dry well.
Which would be plenty because it's just an outdoor shower with the dry well set in sand. The sand conditions are very permeable.
Yeah, that's the only, we don't have an engineer looking at this, but just that that's one thought. The other, this is a resort zone. I think we call this unit a residence or a cottage?
It's a condominium, condo.
Oh, it's a condo.
Which makes it a resort use under the town code.
Oh, okay, so it's
resort zoning, resort use.
It's a resort unit, I guess?
Yes.
Okay. And just for a little bit of pitch for the state park, I still think we should meet the noise requirements for adjacent to a state park. But that's it.
Okay, no. Anyone else have any comments or questions? All right,
well, I just want to weigh in. I had the same question about the dry well and the depth of groundwater there. I know it's good drainage, but there are a lot of those units in that very concentrated area there. And I also feel that the noise standards should be met if they can be. You know, just there are creatures and other things that abide in the park that, you know.
Well, there's a lot of AC units on this property and they don't have any screening at all.
Yeah, I understand. You know,
and I think that will get addressed as the master plan comes forward.
It won't, or it will?
It will.
We're going to keep running into the same questions over and over again. So
yeah,
it might be a good idea to address it in a macro way.
Correct.
Yeah, people using the park should have a peaceful and quiet enjoyment of the property.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. So that I'm clear, have you submitted the wastewater information? Because the first question is, should information pertaining to wastewater containment be submitted?
We can do that. When we resubmit the revised survey, we'll just put a note that the dry well,
right?
There's a dry well that will be under the shower.
That's fine. I mean, if you can answer any of these questions, if that's possible. Should information pertaining to generated noise be submitted? And again, it seems that that's the standout issue here. Should manufacturer specification sheets for, well, I guess the lighting, Eric, the lighting issue is resolved?
Yeah, I believe they supplied sufficient information.
I'm sorry?
I believe they supplied sufficient information. I just missed it on the plan.
So we can pass by that question. And then the last one, and I'm going to go around the table on this. Does the board wish to waive the public hearing requirement? Let me start over on the left side with Ed.
You know, I usually don't like to waive public hearing requirements, but I actually think in this case we can.
Okay. Lou?
Yes, we can. I vote to waive it.
Ian?
I agree.
Kathy?
Yeah, I'm with Ed on this. Generally, I don't like to, but I think in this instance, this is such a small modification. I don't think it requires a public hearing.
Okay, Randy?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I wonder, do we have we usually ask for the health department calculation just to be on a site plan? You know, what's
Point.
the permitted flow and what's the existing flow?
Oh, this poor guy, I mean, he's gonna be taking on the job of the entire condominium for this little teeny project. I mean, there's no septic waste being generated at all, so it's not adding to it.
No, but
When we do the master plan, all that information, they're gonna be upgrading the sanitary system, all that stuff is gonna be coming to you.
I agree with that. Let me get Sharon. I didn't want to divert from the question, Randy. Sharon,
No public hearing.
I'm going to make it unanimous, no public hearing. And I don't think we need to impose any further requirements at this time. Lori, what's the time frame on the bigger picture on this?
On the what, sorry?
The bigger picture, the more.
Well, when you're dealing with a board of directors and an architect and a management firm.
No, you don't have to commit yourself.
There's a lot of going around, and I can't tell you.
You don't have to commit yourself on television, that's fine. All right, let's move on now. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Okay, the last
Bye,
item
Lori.
on our.
Bye, thanks.
Take care now. Last item on the work is the Chad Smith Artist Studio. And I see, although it says Richard Hammer, I know that it's Joel Halsey. And who's the applicant. And Richard, are you on that application as well? Okay, very good. So it is Marco and it is Kathy. So Marco, go right ahead. Marco, you're muted. Still muted.
Yeah, it just shifted when I clicked share screen. Okay, everyone should be able to see the aerial at the moment. I'll just zoom in a little bit. Okay, so this is the second time I believe this is being brought forward before the board. But since just to recap, so this is an application that has been submitted to construct a 24-foot 2-inch by 42-foot 1-inch or 1,064 square foot artist studio on an existing residential parcel. The artist studio includes a lower level with 500 square feet of storage area and 600 square feet for a garage. A loft area of roughly 120 square feet is also proposed, and its square footage should be noted on the floor plans. The parcel is situated on Navy Road in an A residence zoning district. The existing 2-story, 1-family residence consists of a 1,350 square foot first floor, a 950 square foot second floor, and an unfinished upper level attic. Chapter 255-11-88 of the Town Code, revised in 2019, sets regulations for an artist studio and provides that the planning board shall review and approve as such. So moving from the aerial, I'm just going to go over to the this plan that depicts the artist studio and its location. So Chapter 255-11-88, Part 1 of the Town Code limits the size of the artist studio to that of a legal accessory structure, or 600 square feet, unless the applicant demonstrates to the planning board that the need for a larger size structure. If a larger structure is proposed as such the subject application, the planning board needs to determine that the property constraints make it difficult or impractical to construct a studio that is attached to the principal building, or to construct a studio that conforms to the size of an accessory structure, or the applicant has justified the need for a larger studio based on the applicant's art form and the scope or size of the work, or the size is compatible with the residential neighborhood. In regards to the first bullet point, the planning department finds that the property's constraints would make constructing a studio attached to the principal building would be impractical, as it would necessitate a natural resources special permit for being within the 150-foot setback to the bluff line. The planning board should review the materials submitted by the applicant to determine if there is a justified need for the artist studio, for a larger studio, and if the size of the structure would be compatible with the residential neighborhood. The planning board had previously requested that the applicant to explore alternative locations for the artist studio, and that would not impact the slopes on the property. The applicant's narrative, which is attached to the memo, has stated that there are no alternative locations. So if the board makes a finding that the larger structure is justified, the following additional limitations on the size of the artist studio apply. No artist studio shall in any case exceed the lesser of A, B, and C. The smallest number is in A, where the gross floor area of the ground floor of the residence, 1,350 square feet. So the studio is proposed to be 1,064 square feet, with an upper level loft area and lower level also proposed. The loft area is not considered to be potential second story as prohibited in Chapter 255-11-88 of the Town Code if it is to be used for storage only. The floor plans have labeled the area as storage loft. The lower level consists of 500 square feet of storage and utility space and 600 square feet of garage space. The storage and utility space in the lower level is located below natural grade and will be considered a cellar and would not count towards gross floor area. Any part of the structure housing an artist studio and not used for such purposes is limited to accessory structure limitation of 600 square feet. The garage space is 600 square feet and meets the size limitation. I'm just going to pull up the floor plans that were submitted during the initial evaluation. They have not been revised for this second time, but this is just a look at what the artist studio looks like. I'm just going to scroll down. So you can see if, let's see if there's a side elevation. So this is the red lines kind of indicate where the hill is. The bottom is the basement area and the garage area. And above, sitting on top of that foundation, is where the main artist studio is located. So it appears that the legal gross floor area of the proposed artist studio meets the town code and zoning at 1,064 square feet if the board determines that a larger structure is warranted. So the parcel is subject to pre-existing clearing numbers in accordance to the town's clearing ordinance of 2004. The planning department has determined that the pre-existing clearing allowed should be 51,000 square feet. At the moment, the lot is overcleared by roughly 8,000 square feet and should be revegetated prior to the issuance of a CO. I'm just going to pull back up the revegetation plan. This was revised for this particular review. So this is the latest plan. The applicant's revegetation plan indicates that the lot will be revegetated with bayberry, which is Myrica pennsylvanica, sedgegrass, Carex pennsylvanica, switchgrass, Panicum virgatum. I'm trying. Little blue stem. That one's a little bit too complicated, so I'm just going to skip that. And other plantings. The applicant has submitted a revised revegetation plan that includes additional bayberry shrubs. However, the planning department makes note that the majority of the plantings and areas are for primarily grasses that are roughly in the same amounts as the previous plan. The natural revegetation of the area involves ensuring the area is to be as if it were naturally occurring oak woodland. The applicant should consider planting the area with mostly woody shrubs and additional trees native to the area to restore the canopy. Although the property is not in a water recharge overlay district, it is adjacent to one and contains the same native vegetation. The spacing for the plantings on the plans should be relabeled from per plan and spaced 3 to 4 feet for small bayberries and spaced 5 feet for larger bayberries. Only a limited number of grasses should be planted below the shrubs to decrease the likelihood of the area being mowed or cleared in the future and to encourage the development of natural vegetative communities. In addition, the applicant should provide a revised proposed site plan depicting the existing and proposed clearing numbers that are also consistent with the revegetation plan. The property's revegetation plan does not account for the existing 2019 building permit or the ZBA determination, which, if it were to obtain a modification approval from the ZBA, could be exercised to a certain extent after the artist studio were approved by the planning board. So I'm just going to show you the survey. This was the last survey that was submitted with the application. This has not been revised yet for this time around for review, but you can see this is where the proposed artist studio is. Roughly, it's very faint. And then you can see below it, that is where the reference building permit for a garage is located, and patio. So a new revised one should be submitted. So the applicant has submitted a revised vegetation plan, but will need a revised proposed site plan to address previous points discussed during the initial review. There are multiple discrepancies between the initial site plan and revised vegetation plan in relation to clearing and proposed structures. The applicant should provide consistent clearing calculations on all proposed maps. In addition, the proposed site plan depicts a new garage, patio, staircase, and legalized shed, which are subject to a building permit that was obtained in 2019 by the applicant and are separate from the artist studio, which is illustrated there below. These structures are not accounted for in regards to the revised revegetation plan or calculations.
And that is that everything, Margo?
No, I'm not. I'm just. I think I kind of repeated myself, unfortunately, there again in this paragraph. But basically, should the building permit be exercised, the lot will be cleared further and will require additional revegetation. So in addition to that open building permit, which I just mentioned before, the planning department notes that the property is also the subject of a previous ZBA determination named Nancy Mack, which was granted in 2017 and includes multiple patio areas, interior and exterior alterations to the main principal structure, and a new residential structure. The survey associated with that said application also proposes a concrete retaining wall, private well, and sanitary system. So I'm just going to pull up that 2017 survey here. And you can see where the what was approved in that application is a residential structure here with I think somewhat of a breezeway that attaches to it, and all the other things I mentioned before. So the full ZBA determination with additional details is attached to the memo. It is unclear if any of the work that was approved in the determination has been acted upon, and it does not appear that any building permits related to the determination have been applied for. However, the applicant should specify if any work related to the determination has been conducted, and it is recommended that the floor plans of the existing principal structure be submitted. If any work related to the ZBA decision had been conducted, it would need proper building permits, but most importantly, a modification of the ZBA approval. In addition, the areas in which certain improvements are approved to be constructed appear to be located near the same areas where the artist studio is proposed to be. Areas such as the proposed basement, patio, and retaining walls overlap areas where the proposed studio is. So if you see where it's located roughly here on this survey, and if I were to go back to the survey that was associated with the artist studio, although it's in a slightly fainter font, but you can see it's in a somewhat similar location. It's located further away, of course, outside of the building itself is outside of NRSP jurisdiction, but it's not particularly clear how much overlaps each other. The planning department notes that as part of the ZBA determination, the property shall be brought into compliance in regards to clearing with a revegetation plan to be submitted prior to the issuance of a building permit. It appears that the artist studio should be granted. Should the artist studio be granted approval, the existing 2019 building permit and the ZBA application could still be exercised plans, although the latter all of the latter would need to be granted a modification request from the ZBA as certain portions overlap with the artist studio. The project is proposing 2 retaining walls that are within natural resources special permit jurisdiction. You can see them here on this revegetation plan. These are the 2 retaining walls that I'm referencing. And it's proposed here on the revegetation plan and on that survey before. Their construction will require an RSP from the Zoning Board of Appeals as they are within the setbacks from the bluff crest. The existing blueberry enclosure indicated on the revegetation plan is considered to be a structure and will need to meet the town's dimensional regulations as specified in Chapter 255-11-10. It does not appear that the structure meets the side yard setback of 20 feet in an A residence zoning or the proper height for the town's pyramid law. In addition, the black wire fencing along the top of the bluff was noted to be constructed with no prior approval. The appropriate code chapter would be 255-4-40 in regarding the black wire fencing. The fencing and structure are both located within 150 feet of the top of the bluff line and will require a natural resources special permit and a variance from the 255-4-40 coastal setbacks, including bluff and dune crest setbacks, or the structures could be removed to avoid such requirements. The structure will require an additional variance from the Chapter 255-11-10 dimensional regulations, or it can be removed. It is noted that the submitted architectural building plans do not appear to be scalable and revised plans should be submitted to the planning board. In addition, it was noted that during the initial evaluation that the access way to the property had run across the neighboring property. The applicant should address the access way and ensure that the property's access is within the property's boundaries, which can be seen here. The property line is in this line here, somewhat dotted, and you can see that it goes across that. 255-11-88 Part 2 of the Town Code provides that an artist studio may have a sink, but shall have no bath, shower, toilet, or other plumbing. Floor plans of the studio depict that the interior space will have a sink and contains a notation that no bath, shower, toilet, or plumbing other than that for a sink is permitted. If the artist studio is approved, the applicant will be required to record the covenants and restrictions that include, among the other provisions, that the studio shall not be used for any time for sleeping or living purposes, shall not be rented for any purposes except as part of the rental for the entire property, and that no commercial exhibits, commercial classes, or other public events shall be permitted. In the event that the studio is not, cannot, or will not be employed for the purposes or use set forth herein for more than 1 year, the property owner, artist, or representative thereof must notify the East Hampton Town Building Department in writing. At the request of the artist, the Town Planning Board may permit a studio use to remain vacant for more than 1 year upon finding that the extenuating circumstances based upon information attested by the approved artist. Absent of that finding, either the new artist occupying the studio must promptly submit a new application, or such studio shall be removed from the property or demolished, or the plumbing existing therein removed. If oversized, or if the same should be located in or above an otherwise legally existing accessory building, such studio and accessory building in which it is located shall be reduced to a conforming size and put to a conforming use at the sole expense of the property owner within 24 months. The planning department notes that if the studio is to be rendered an accessory structure, it would be difficult to do so as only 600 square feet would be allowed as the maximum area. It is most likely that the top of the structure would be removed and that the lower garage and storage space will remain. As the lower areas are 500 square feet and the garage is 600 square feet, one of the 2 structures will need to be filled, deconstructed, or other methods of removal to bring the area within accessory structure size limitations. So in conclusion, the subject property must address the overclearing in addition to addressing the retaining walls, structures, and fencing located within the coastal setbacks detailed in the town code. The planning department recommends that the property be properly revegetated prior to the issuance of a CO to ensure that the lot is in compliance with the town code. The proposed site plan also proposes an additional garage, which will add additional clearing that should be considered. It appears that the applicant is exploring different options for proposed structures on the property, one of which is an approved ZBA determination of 2017 with a 2-story residential addition with patios and basement. And the second is an artist studio with a basement and garage. The applicant has the right to explore alternatives for development on the property. However, the planning board should keep in mind of what has been previously approved for and issues that should be addressed prior to a potential approval.
That is an incredibly thorough report, and thank you for it, Marco. We have a lot to digest on this one. Mr. Hammer, Halsey, floor is yours.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. I'm here with Joel, obviously, again. I just have a couple of things that I want to say. Most of the important stuff I'm going to defer to Joel on. One is, I just want to correct, Marco said that the required setback for the blueberry shed is 20 feet. In actuality, we're going to be removing it, but in actuality, the setback that's required for an accessory structure is 15 feet, which is what the artist studio is proposed at. Well, it's proposed at 16, but it's actually a 15-foot side yard required setback. The reason that you guys don't have scalable plans is we submitted this to the building department in accordance with the prior policy. And then this policy was adopted after we submitted. So this is, to my knowledge, probably the first one that's being processed by the planning board under the new code provisions. One thing I wanted to point out is the 150-foot NRSP jurisdiction is actually a 150-foot bluff crest setback. Keep in mind the bluff crest setback varies by lot size. So the adjacent property to this property has a much lower setback, but because of the property size on this one, the 150-foot setback is applicable. So we set that structure on the edge of the 150-foot so that it would comply with all jurisdictional requirements as well as setback restrictions. And as of right, we could build a 600 square foot garage in that exact space. Without any further approval from this board or any review from this board or for that matter, any board other than the building department. What is unusual here is that we have an artist, and I think we've demonstrated to you his art form. It's a different kind of art form that requires a little bit larger space than 600 square feet. I don't know if you've reviewed the submissions, but you can see it uses large format type cameras and all kinds of different other things to actually project this art and make it into a very interesting form. That's why we need a little bit larger structure than would be permitted under a 600 square foot typical accessory structure. The reason we located this at the 150 foot is because, as Marco pointed out, the town code says you can either tear it down or try to attach it. Well, we don't think it's a good application to apply for a 1,200 or the 1,000 square foot accessory or principal structure within a required setback on this property. We think the better alternative would be to try to attach it in the future as one of the alternatives, make it part of the principal structure. And this is the most likely location that we could accomplish that in accordance with the town code. So it's not that we didn't explore other locations. This is the only one that makes sense under the guise that you either have to tear it down or attach it. This is the most likely location that we'll be able to attach it. In terms of the sloping, that's not a requirement under the artist studio regulations under the town code, nor is it even a requirement of the building code. So as I said, I just want to reiterate, we could build a 600 square foot garage in this exact identical location that requires the same amount of excavation. The reason we're in front of you is we want an artist studio that's a little bit larger than is allowable so that we can accommodate the additional the artwork that's being accomplished in the property. Joel can address the re-veg and other things, but if you have any questions on those particular provisions, I'm certainly here, and I'll turn it over to Joel.
Sure. And with regards to the revegetation, we plan on complying with, the revegetation at the end of the day. The plan will be approved by the planning department. We will have get rid of the grasses. We will have the woody vegetation. And again, there was a ZBA approval back in 2017. They have not acted on that ZBA approval. They are unsure if they ever will act on that ZBA approval. But for the time being, they would like to get an artist studio on their property so they can do their art form. The garage that was approved was in the southwestern portion of the property, just east of the driveway there. They have not acted on that either. And again, that would require some removal of vegetation. Any vegetation that gets removed will be restored. And again, the property at the end of the day, before a certificate of occupancy is issued, the property will be revegetated to comply with the required amount of allowable clearing on this property. The blueberry enclosure, we were hoping that wasn't going to be a structure. It's a minor little appurtenance to the property. It's there to grow blueberries. It's vegetation. They'll remove it. I guess they'll hopefully leave the blueberries. They just won't be able to pick them because the birds will get to them first. But they'll remove the enclosure. The retaining walls that are proposed within jurisdiction, within jurisdiction, I believe we will probably try to redesign that so we do not have to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals. But if this plan is approved, we don't. Those are not necessary structures for the artist studio.
The retaining wall that is on the
south side is a little bit more
is more pertinent, but the one on the north side it seems like it can be removed from the scope of construction.
More for aesthetics for the walkways and access ways, but again, they're unneeded. If the board has any questions, I'm definitely here, happy to answer anything.
All right. Thanks very much. Kathy?
Gee, thanks. Well, this is very complicated to me. It seems to be getting more and more complicated. I looked at the site today, and I guess my main reservation at this point, which I've expressed before, but now I have a second question regarding that, is the proposed site for the garage garage and artist studio is in a really steep hill. Those are very steep slopes there. It's hard to envision it. You can see the topo lines, but it's a big hill. And I had originally asked why not try to place the garage on the area that's flatter, which is nearer to the, I guess the southern, the entrance to the property in that area there, where now I've learned there was a building permit issued for construction of a garage. So I just wonder why you wouldn't put the whole thing there. It seems like it's just a lot less trouble. And it would feel to me more, compatible with the residential neighborhood. The hill, I beg your pardon, that the studio is proposed to be in, the garage would be sort of built in, that first floor would be built in, but then the top of it, which includes the second floor, which includes this loft space, and there's a pretty big chimney on that. I mean, it's a nice looking building. It's going to tower over that whole area. And while it's within setbacks, it's close to the neighboring, it's on the neighboring property line. It's whatever it is, 15, 20 feet from the neighboring property line. And it's already on a hill. So it's, it just seems incompatible with the residential neighborhood, what's around there. So I would still ask if there wasn't some way to, revise this to go back to your original concept of the garage, and thus add the second floor for the studio to that, to that structure, and then, deal with the future, if it, you know, has to revert to just a garage, you can, you know, take that top floor off or do whatever is necessary. I mean, it's an odd component of these requirements that were meant to sort of envision the, you know, what happens if it's not used as an artist studio, but it seems to be, we seem to be obligated to consider that. You know, I think Marco did a really good job on this assessment, and I am concerned it's very overcleared. Most of the vegetation that's there is not naturally occurring. It's not the scrub oak and low bush blueberry that you would find in this area. It's a lot of grasses. The hill is planted with grass. It must be a devil to mow. It's like, you know, because it's so round. So you know, I would like to get some feedback from the applicant on that. Why not put it in that lower, you know, because the pool is in a flat space, and it's not inconceivable that, you know, the area surrounding the pool could be narrowed a little on that, on its western side, you know, to move the garage east more if that was desirable. And then I still have questions about the driveway. You know, I don't know how we can approve a site plan with a driveway that's not on the property. So those are, you know, those are my questions. And I am concerned about the revegetation. This just seems, you know, it looks pretty, it's artfully done, but it's not in keeping with our code requirements. So
I think the first thing we need to focus on as a threshold question is the qualification of the applicant as an artist.
well, yeah, I don't have any problem with that. I think that the art, that requirement has been met by Mr. Smith, although I don't know if Linda Mack is an artist, and I have problems with this being, you know, if it's Chad Smith's art studio, that's great. It's come in under Smith Mack a couple of times, and that confuses me. I think if it's for an artist, it should be the name of the artist who's using the artist studio, not the family that happens to own the land. So I would ask that that be, but I think his resume and his, you know, I think they've met the criteria, and I find it, I mean, it's unusual. It's not a typical fine art form because it's generated by sound and motion. But it's, you know, I would suggest to the board that we should find this person, Chad Smith, to be an artist. That's not an issue for me.
Yeah, I think it behooves us to, before we get into the conversation on the board, that I'll just basically put it to the board. Is there anyone on the board who doesn't concur that the applicant, Chad Smith, is an artist who qualifies for this relief? Does anyone disagree with that?
I don't disagree, no.
And I'm gonna just, you know, going once, going twice, going three times. Okay.
Okay.
That's the threshold question. Now we can go on to the next question, which I suppose the key question is whether the enlarged proposal is justified. I suppose that's really the next.
Well, I don't know that it is, especially given the way that it's composed. It seems like the main area of the artist studio is going to be the 600 square feet with 120-foot storage and a garage beneath. So I'm not sure he's going to be using the garage for this work, but one of the things that concerns me is no matter where this is placed, because the lot is relatively narrow, you know, in these areas, it widens out a little bit as it goes toward the water, but is sound attenuation, because this is a drummer, you know, this is percussion. And I would have to recommend strongly that build wherever this art studio is put on this land, it should be heavily sound attenuated, because that's a sound that carries. And, you know, people like to work at odd times of day, and, you know, you do your work when the mood hits you, and it could be 2 a.m. So it's important to consider the impacts on the residential neighborhood. You know, I mean, we've all sat in our living rooms and heard the thumping bass of a car driving by, and this is going to be, you know, a drum kit and hard percussive, you know, sound waves. So I think that would have to be a requirement of this building, you know, whether it's put in the hill or on the flat.
Let me ask, does anyone else on the board have an opportunity to have something they want to add on this? I guess I can start with Ed. I'll go around the table. It's just the most efficient way of doing it. So Ed, do you wish to add anything on this?
Yeah, no, I was surprised to see the 2017 determination by the ZBA. That was sort of news to me. I don't know if we've heard about that prior to this packet coming around for today's meeting.
It was new to me too.
Yeah, so my question is, it looks to me, just looking at the survey, although I noticed the 150-foot line wasn't noted on that survey, I don't think, or at least I didn't see it. Yeah, it looks as though, you know, the building that's proposed as an addition is in fact within that 150-foot setback. Is that right? So if the ZBA granted this, is there an NRSP already involved? Or I'm a little confused about what's going on with that.
Joe, I can.
Yeah, go ahead, Richard or Joe. Please answer that.
So there is a valid natural resource special permit and variance in place for the addition, as you see on that survey.
There is.
They have not acted on it. I do not know if they ever will act on it once they got they haven't acted on it, and I don't know if they will act on it.
And I don't even know if it's relevant for your board's consideration in terms of, you know, they have an approval, but they're not acting on it. As a matter of fact, I think they're unlikely to ever act on it, but I don't think the artist studio provisions of the code would require me to withdraw an active approval to qualify for an artist studio. That's not what 1188 of the town code says. It says you have to qualify him as an artist and then proceed to evaluate the proposed artist studio.
And I believe,
well, yeah, I think we're doing that. I think we're doing exactly that.
And I believe if they were to build this artist studio, that 2017 determination probably would not fit together properly with the artist studio.
No.
I would imagine.
And that's the reason that I'm pointing it out. Okay.
I would imagine it would have to be a whole new plan if they ever did want to do some sort of addition to the house.
Yeah. All right. So I'm just saying that there are some inconsistencies here, right? There's some there's definitely overlap, but my point is, and listen, this is Chad Smith's decision, not mine. But I always sort of find it. You know, it sort of feels like, you know, building a structure can only then, if the property is ever sold, and properties get sold, you know, all the time, right? Even when people think they're going to stay forever, you know, it does, raise this issue of, you know, what happens to the oversized building if someone who doesn't qualify for having one wants to buy it. But, you know, that's his problem, I guess, right? Not ours. But it does sort of, when I saw this proposal, it felt to me like it frankly made more sense, and particularly given that the NRSP has already been granted. So, because I do have some of the same issues with building into the hillside that Kathy mentioned. So that's what I've got on this. This feels a little sort of confusing, quite honestly.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. All right, Lou, please.
Yeah, I mean, the way I see it, these are all questions that have gone through my mind as well, but I just want to make sure that I stick to what is in front of us and what we're authorized to decide on. And unless somebody can convince me otherwise, I think what Andy said is that this structure is within code, and in terms of setbacks and that kind of thing. The only thing that we have to decide is whether or not it's a bona fide artist who's going to use this as his studio. And in that case, I agree. It is, you know, it is an artist studio. To answer, I think what Kathy was getting to before about putting the garage and studio closer to the south. I think and Andy, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I know you said that they probably won't go through with the plans that were approved by the zoning board. But if by putting the structure here, it still gives them the flexibility, if they wish, to connect this structure to the main residence and also improve that residence. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that this is the most likely location that the way to correct the artist studio, if it's not used by an artist, is to connect it to the house. That zoning board approval probably comes close to making it an attached accessory structure, but obviously, you know, my advice would be, well, reconfigure it so that you can then incorporate it into the house. It becomes a conforming principal structure at that point.
Right. So anyway, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
The measurement, it would be approximately about a 40-foot by 20-foot addition to the house to connect to the artist studio. So you're looking at about an 800 square foot addition.
So if somebody buys this house that's not an artist, they can connect this structure to the house if they get the approvals to do that, if they stay within code and.
Yes, and at that point, it could then have bedrooms, bathrooms. It would be just like a principal structure. Right?
And would they have to go in front of the zoning board again?
They would have to. They would have to either get a modification of the existing approval, or they would have to go before the, you know, depending on the scope of the plan, to do a whole new application. But you know, at present, there's a large approval already on the property from the zoning board of appeals. You know, if you were to make a smaller, a smaller, a plan to the zoning board of appeals, you know, I think it would be either a simple modification or a simple application there.
I did want to point out also to one of the concerns that we did in fact submit sound baffling plans and how that is being accommodated in the structure. It's part of the application. So if you do review what was submitted, you will see that we've taken great pains to address that. And the other concern here is the adjacent property owner, which is owned by the same property owner. So they are the most impacted adjacent property to this structure.
I'm sorry, what did you say? The adjacent property owner is?
Same owner, Luke.
They own both pieces of property.
It's the same owner.
Which goes to why the driveway snakes between the two properties. I can grant a permanent easement to one or the other to allow that driveway to remain where it is, but it's common ownership. So that's why it currently has a common driveway.
Right.
It sounds
Don't
like
need that easement. I mean, Lou, I just want to draw your attention to page 1 of Marco's memo, where it discusses the limited to accessory structure size. The town code limits the size of the artist studio to that of a legal accessory structure of 600 square feet unless the applicant demonstrates to the planning board the need for a larger size structure. If a larger structure is proposed, such as the subject application, the planning board needs to determine that property constraints make it difficult or impractical to construct a studio that is attached to the principal building, or to construct a studio that conforms to the size of an accessory structure. I'm not sure that that criteria has been met. The applicant has justified the need for a larger studio based on the applicant's art form and the scope or size of work. The size is compatible with the residential neighborhood. I mean, I think that's a really key criteria here. And I would urge you to go and look at this hill where this thing is supposed to go and see if you think that's actually a compatible building for this residential neighborhood. It's going to tower over everything, in the.
Let me see if Lou, do you have anything else on this?
No, I don't.
Let Ian.
I think I largely agree with Lou on this and the other board members in that This is a little bit of an odd application. I certainly find that the applicant's an artist. And frankly, I just want to say, I think that this is a tough section of code. I mean, we're being asked to determine who's an artist and what their art requires. And that's a tricky job for anybody. And, you know, our anticipation of what might happen if this is sold, it's messy code and makes our job very, very difficult. But I think that based on the art and what we've seen, that they've got a good argument for needing the larger size. And I think that they would have to deal with the consequences of selling the property. And, you know, I hope that future owners would be aware of what they're buying. But I don't think our code is super helpful there. My biggest issue is knowing about the building permit already issued for that ZBA, that expansion. I just want to make sure that if we approve this, that those two projects could work together. You know, we've had experiences where we looked at one site not relative to another, and from an engineering standpoint, they just didn't work. And I don't want to get ourselves into that position here. So I would ask the applicant to demonstrate, you know, a clear plan if they're going to build both, or to withdraw one if the other one proceeds, or show that they could, you know, they could work together. I'm not comfortable with the fact there's already a building permit and they wouldn't have to ask any other town agency to proceed with that other project if we approve this, and we just don't know that they work together. So that's the biggest issue. I think clearing is also an issue. And they would need to improve their plan to the satisfaction of the planning department, which I'm confident they could do. And obviously that would be a requirement before anything proceeds. And then access is the last issue. We would need to see a permanent easement there. I know it's common ownership now, but we want to make sure that going forward that, you know, they always have legal access. And if you look to where the revegetation is proposed, or where there is vegetation counted, it's near where that driveway veers off the property. So, you know, to demonstrate you could have the clearing calculations be compliant, you need to show that access can remain outside the property. You know, largely, I think this can proceed. I think that there's a lot of loose ends to tie up, and you know, I remain a little uneasy, like the other board members, about the size of the structure and what might happen down the road. But I think by our code, you know, it's an approvable plan based on the artist. I just want to see that it would work with that previous approval or the building permit that's been issued, or know that they're going to withdraw that before they could apply for a permit here.
I think for the
All right. I think those are all.
Just to clarify, there is no building permit for that other approval.
For the addition, there's no building permit.
Isn't there a 2019 building permit out?
For a garage.
Okay.
Oh, I apologize. I was under the impression that there was a building permit.
And to your point, I don't believe that the ZBA permit, that what's granted under the ZBA permit would necessarily mesh with the artist studio. I believe it would take some modification of that plan to be able to actually attach this artist studio.
Yeah, and then that's my concern, Joel, is that I think that, like, it's the definition of bad planning if we approve a plan that can't work with an existing plan. So,
but I believe the property owners are well aware of this, and that's the risk.
Property owners plan.
Well, yeah, but I think that you know, we have a smart council that represents us. You guys have smart council. Perhaps there's a way to make sure that there wouldn't be two approved plans on the table that don't work together. So you have a covenant or something that says if you move forward with one, you have to do something.
Well, we can probably address it and withdraw.
That's all I'm asking. I don't want to be difficult about that, but again, I think that it would be the definition of bad planning if we don't recognize that there's another plan that exists that doesn't mesh with the current plan.
I agree. I ran. That was any? Nothing else?
That's it. Yep.
Okay, Randy, go right ahead.
So I agree with a lot of what my colleagues have said. So I agree with Kathy that I'm not convinced that I accept that this man is a creative person and he wants to do this particular type of artwork. I'm not sure that, I'm not convinced that he's justified the larger size. It seems to me that we're talking about moving a barn that he already bought from Pennsylvania, and maybe the size of the barn he already bought is more determinative than what he needs to do his artwork. The other thing I have, and this is this is kind of it's a code question for Marco and Thomas and Joanne and Mark. Is that so? The way it seems, the way the code seems to read, it says that if you are creating space within the studio that is not for the purpose of the artist, it's not for the purpose of the artist studio, then it has to meet the accessory building requirements. Now that's been done with the garage, but it hasn't been done with the 500 feet of storage. If the 500 feet of storage underneath the top floor is part of the artist studio, then it should be added to the 1,064 square feet, and it doesn't meet the code. If it's not part of the artist studio, then it needs to be 600 square feet. So I don't see how that works. I agree with what others have said. It's sort of like, I understand why a property owner would want to hang on to an approval, but it seems to me like that ZBA approval may have given him an attached artist studio already. And you can have a bathroom in it. You can make it, you get out from under all of these detached artist studio rules. You've already got the approval. And then this other 2019 building permit for garage. I agree with Ian and the others on that. I mean, it's kind of like, make up your mind, what is it that you want to do here? Because we got three balls in the air. We got the garage with the building permit, we got the ZBA approval, and then we've got now the artist application. So like, which one is it?
Well, the artist application is kind of a separate thing.
But
it's not for me to answer.
It conflicts with the other ones, though, Sam.
No, I don't know. I understand where you're coming from with that.
Okay.
I only think we should address it in terms of the artist studio and the oversized nature of it. Now, we all agree that it's an artist studio. So really, let's just focus on the one thing that we have right now that we have to address, which is the size. I mean, I agree that if there's another application out there, we don't want it to conflict. But based on what the conversation I just heard, it doesn't sound like that's going to happen or it is happening. So how do you feel just about the size issue alone?
Well, what is that 500 square feet? Is it part of the artist studio, or is it a separate accessory storage building?
We can answer that. The storage area is not counted as gross floor area. It's part of the accessory structure. So it's not related to the artist studio.
But the artist studio provision doesn't say that, the artist, the square footage of the artist studio is a gross floor area determination. It just says that the artist studio can't be larger than these three thresholds. So is the 500 square feet part of the artist studio?
No, it wasn't designed as part of the artist studio. It's a separate storage area that doesn't count towards the gross floor area of the accessory structure either. Joel can answer this better than I can, and I'll defer to him on that. I did want to provide one other insight, which is why did the town adopt artist studio regulations in the first place to allow detached accessory structures? It's because artists feel more creative and want the ability to work in a place other than their home. So that's the driving nexus of why this legislation exists in the first place. And that's one of the reasons why this is proposed, not as an attached to the house. It's a separate studio space for a media and a different type of art that you wouldn't want to attach. If you were a professional artist, you would probably feel confined and stifled being attached to your primary residence. That's why the town board, in their wisdom, or you could say their stupidity, that's not for me to judge. This has been a part of our code for a long time and recognizes those exact reasons.
Yes, but it's been given to us to deal with. So, all right. Randy, do you have anything else at this point?
No, I just want to hear how Joel's going to explain the 500 square feet of storage.
500 square feet, as defined under the town code, does not count towards gross floor area.
But why does the garage have to be 600 square feet if the 500 square feet of storage doesn't?
Because the garage is more than 4 feet out of grade, and by definition, that counts as gross floor area.
That this is an underground space, basically.
So by definition, the storage area doesn't count. And for an artist studio, it does state the gross floor area, the ground floor of the residence, or an area equal to 5. So basically, an artist studio can't be. It does reference gross floor area, not size, but gross floor area.
Well, reference the gross floor area of the home. I don't know. I think that 500 square feet, which is utilities and storage, is part of the studio, the way I see it. You're not going to store motor oil in there.
But it's storage. You could store things. You could store your beach chairs, or you could store your artwork. It's storage.
Okay.
We can go round and round on this, and I don't want to.
Okay.
All right.
Go ahead.
Sharon, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have, I'm pretty much in agreement with what everybody's saying. Make sure that the clearing has been dealt with. And, I think I was thinking the same thing as Ian, let's just make sure that these different permits, all are compatible with each other. I understand Kathleen's concern about a looming structure, but I'm assuming it meets pyramid. So that's what the pyramid zoning laws are for, to make sure that it doesn't loom over any other, nearby neighbor. So I'm assuming that that's not the case here. No, I do think he's an artist, and if he requires the slightly larger space, I'm okay with that, as long as, we feel like this fits on the property. But, I think it does need to be cleaned up a little bit with just understanding how all of these applications work with each other.
Yeah.
I just want to clarify that it isn't about the pyramid law.
Wrap this up, okay? We've been on this for an hour, over an hour, and we have an executive session that we need to go into. I don't mean to be abrupt, but I'm going to have to be, because we discussed this thing in every aspect. And I think that what we need to do is we need to go through the questions real quick, which really we've answered all of them. And the applicant's going to come back, and we can deal with the remaining questions at a later date. We can't keep going around on this one. I'm sorry. So does the board find that we found that he's a working artist, and is there a justified need for a studio larger than 600 square feet? Just across the table, all those who agree that that need has been met, please say so.
I do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
3, 4. Any say no? Good.
I'm on the fence.
Well, pick one. Pick one or abstain. I mean,
All right, I'll go along with that he needs the larger space.
All right, good. Should the applicant submit a revised proposed plan with consistent clearing calculations? I think we can all agree on that. Yes?
Yes.
All right. Should the applicant address the existing structures, including the blueberry enclosure and the black wire fencing on the property. I think the applicants already said that they would. The applicant submits scalable architectural building plans. I don't think anyone's going to say no to that.
Of what?
Okay, plans.
House?
Yeah, no, to,
Yeah, you.
to the, for the artist.
Oh, the structure, you mean? Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The applicant address the property's access and ensure that the lot's access is within the proposed boundaries.
Or an easement. I'm okay.
Well, however you're doing. I mean, you're
Yeah.
not dropping by helicopter, so. Does anyone disagree with that? No one? Okay. And also I tell the applicant to, based on what Ian raised, and you addressed it, but let's make sure the next time out, we have, the next time you're here, that there's no lingering question about inconsistencies between this application and anything else that you've got going. All right? All right. Again, I'm sorry to be, to have to, cut people off, but we really need to wrap this whole thing up. With that, we're out of the work session and we'll get into the regular meeting. First, we have 3 site plan resolutions. The first one, Ian, is on Gatsby.
In the matter of the application of Daniel Gatsby site plan for approval, I have read the resolution and move for its adoption.
All those is there a second?
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None, passed and carried, 7-0. All right, next is the Nextel Cellular New Singular Wireless Sprint. Jesus. Ian, that's yours. It's a modification.
And in the matter of the application of new singular wireless, aka AT&T, at Suffolk County Water Authority, Flamingo, site plan, special permit, personal wireless service facility modification 3 for a resolution amending approval. I have read the resolution and move for its adoption.
Very good. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No, and here is opposed, right? Okay. Passed and carried, 7-0. Finally, Tower at Montauk, singular wireless. Ed, that's yours.
In the matter of the application of new singular wireless, aka AT&T Tower at Montauk site plan, special permit, personal wireless service facility modification 4 for a resolution amending approval. I've read the resolution and call for its adoption.
Is there a second? Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed and carried, 7-0. Thank you all. And again, thank you to the applicants who were here and to the planning department who stuck around. I am now going to make a motion that we, Thomas, tell me if I do this wrong. I move that we proceed to executive session to meet with council with respect to the St. Peter's cellular application. Is there
Litigation.
I'm sorry?
Litigation.
Litigation, yes, litigate, magic word, litigation, which is why we need to go into executive session. Can I get a second on that? Do I need a second? It's a resolution. Second, thank you, Lou. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? I thought we were gonna have an abstention on at least one on this.
Well, is that called for me?
That was.
Okay. And with that, I will respond farewell.
Farewell. All right, farewell to staff, farewell to Ed. And now we are going into executive session. Thomas, you have the controls?